Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Always Aggressive podcast. I'm Hunter Massengill, alongside head coach Tony Ursuline, Tanner, Corey behind the scenes. No special guest today, so we brought Tanner back on camera.
You guys haven't had to look at me for a few weeks, so I'm sorry.
You're trying to say he's not special.
I didn't say that.
Depends on how you're using special. Special's a flexible adjective.
That's fact.
Okay, North Dakota State this past weekend got the win over the Bison up in Fargo.
And it's Bison.
It is
Yeah.
Bison.
We were informed of this.
Oh yeah, it's Bison. Good win over a quality opponent. The one standout that I wanted to make mention of was Thomas Panola getting a win in sudden victory this past weekend. He's 6-2 on the season, has won his last 4 straight. Like I said, the most recent one coming in sudden victory. For a guy of his age, getting wins like he's been getting, had a pin last weekend, and then
Journeyman, yeah,
and then getting a sudden victory win this past weekend, really starting to maybe get into a bit of a groove for himself this season.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for anybody to out-tough Panola. I mean, he's just such a hard worker, such a physical kid, has just tremendous toughness to him, right? He's got that part of wrestling figured out. He really understands how to kind of impose his will on people. And I thought his performance was indicative of maybe our performance up there at NDSU, where we won a lot of the tough situations. We kind of, won in overtime at 157 as well. However, I would still say, it was a solid effort, but I just think that maybe, we could have wrestled better. We weren't as sharp as I would have wanted us to be, and that's something that's going to be on our minds as we move forward. We won the tough situations, no doubt, and that kind of gave us control of the duel. But when I look at guys like Thomas, it can't just for him be about out-toughing a guy every time. He's going to have to understand how to score points. Sometimes instead of just creating pressure, he's got to look for the opening, create the angle, pull the trigger a little bit more. I mean, and he was in this morning, 6 a.m. and we're learning how to score from other positions. So he gets it. But I wanted to throw that in because while it was a solid effort, our kids wrestled hard. It's got to be about more than just that. It's about getting better every week, and it's learning to score from other positions maybe you hadn't been as successful in. So I do want to put that out there. While our kids wrestled hard, I think they're always going to compete hard. I like this group. For us, it's got to be about getting better. How good can they be? And we want to keep that in mind as we move forward. So good, solid performance, but we definitely need to build on this and be better.
You hate seeing those 7-point wins, 6-point wins.
That's what I was going to say. Is you left a lot of bonus points, dangling with 2 or 3 7-point wins. Is that a huge point of emphasis this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't want to win by 7, you don't want to win by 14. If you can get the pin, you want to get the fall, right? And so it's about getting what you can get. How good can you be? That's the search here. Because if it's just about the win, you won't go back, or a lot of people don't, I guess, go back and kind of look at it in the same way where they're as critical of their performance. Sometimes it takes a loss for you to really sit down and examine, like, whoa, I got to wake up, this is wrong. You know what I mean? And so that was my point to the team is, hey, man, you can't just look at this in terms of, well, we won, and let's just gloss over some of the things that are indicators or warning, flags in my mind of what we have to be better at. And so that's been really the emphasis for this group this week is we got to be better. It's not just about winning. You can wrestle really well and still lose. And we got to fix this mistake. This is where we made the mistake. At the same time, man, you can win and you didn't wrestle worth a darn. Now we were better than that. I don't want to say that we were better than that. It was a solid effort, but we certainly are better than we showed, and so we've got to kind of pick that up and clear up our mistakes as we move forward.
And to Corey's point about getting those right on the borderline of getting an extra team point, a lot of that comes to kind of what you were talking about with Panola, being able to have a better understanding of what your game plan is offensively, getting into positions that you have an idea every position that you get into. Okay, what can I do from here? Because you're going to get into situations where you need to score more points. You need to give yourself a little bit of a cushion because you never know what second and third period is going to look like. And then the same way in those situations to go over that line to give an extra point to the team, you're going to have to know what you need to do in those little moments that helps long term in a match.
And I thought your point, you referenced it with your message to the team yesterday when you talked about, don't be satisfied with winning. Like, and that hit home with me as far as the idea of like, don't be satisfied with just the result. Like, get what you can get. Go get those, if you can get the fall, get the fall. If you can get the tech, get the tech. So on and so forth. Like, I thought it resonated with the guys, and I think it's a great point. It's not always just about the W.
Yeah, we're always keeping in mind we want to be as good as we can be. We get measured by the end of the year. I don't want to make too much of that, right? Like, you can't build that up in your mind, but that's what you train hard for. That's what these guys dream of, and so it's about that journey, not just okay, I got the win here. It can't be about that. It's got to be how good can I be in this sport, and if you can kind of get focused on that, where you're always pushing and extending and staying coachable and staying in the moment, because it's about can I score the next point. You know what I mean? Like that should be your only goal, until you get down to maybe the last 10, 20 seconds of a match and you're up by 1, you're not thinking defense, you're thinking about wrestle the position and score the next point. Okay? Now if you do that and 6 minutes and 50 seconds or 6:40 and there's 20 seconds left and we've got a down block and circle and control a tie, okay, you do that. But you don't want to get in that mindset too early in the match. You'll have the match stolen from out underneath your feet. A guy like Thomas Panola is waiting to come hard at you and get it done. So, we really just want to focus on, hey, score points, wrestle hard. Even if you got taken down and you're underneath, the next point is get your escape. And so just staying in that mindset keeps you from, kind of, okay, I'm ahead by 1, and you shrink from it and you pull back, and now you let the other guy back in the match. We've got to be better than that, and that's really going to be the point of emphasis for this group.
Well, speaking of scoring points, Devin Schroeder with a big accomplishment this past weekend, moving up into 5th all-time for Purdue in terms of back points. Now, I will say, before we get any responses from anyone, we talked about this a couple days ago. He does have the advantage of having a 4-point near fall, which is not, which it only got implemented a couple years ago.
How long have we had the 4-point near fall?
What is it, 3 years now?
Yeah, I think it
That
was
sounds right.
3 years?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
So he does have the advantage of getting an extra point, which some others didn't. However, we did the math that even if he didn't have that, he would still be around 8th all time on the list. So
Yeah,
he's still doing incredible things.
He'd still be well on his way.
He's well on his way to being 2nd, because number 1 is like a Tony Gwynn, Wayne Gretzky type record.
Yeah.
Jake Pataxel, man, that stuff, I tell you what, I got to watch that. I had a front row seat at that for 4 years, and watching that dude tilt people was insane.
Jake Pataxel with 803 back points in his career.
Going by 2s and 3s.
And what's Schroeder at now at 5th all time?
He's at 302.
302. So
He's at
maybe
302.
if he finds like 4 more years of eligibility, something.
Yeah, he's
I'd be okay with that.
I'm good with it.
That's a big number. That's a big number, boys, and you got to throw it to Jake, because that's a heck of a number. But I like it because it gives D. Schroed something to really shoot at. You know what I mean? It's a big number, but you know what? Hey, man, take a run at it. See what you get done.
See how close you can get.
Yep.
What I'd like homework for Tanner is to see what Pataxel's would be with a 4-point near fall. What his record would be.
Switch every 3 to a 4.
I actually could probably. Well, and it's not just that simple though, too, because you have to think about how many times he got 4 swipes and only took 2 back points. So you probably couldn't get the entire number,
close,
but you could probably get close, because it was 5 swipes for 3. Correct?
True. That's a great point. Yeah, 4 swipes.
How many times did he get to 4 and only get 2 instead of 3?
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, you got to think it's well over 1,000.
If you're bored on a bus ride or bored on a plane or something, that's something that.
Bored on a bus ride. That should be the title of a book.
Yes.
Right there.
Coming to theaters near you.
Speaking of scoring points, Max Lyon has over 29 minutes of riding time this season, which is a little bit different.
That's stupid.
Which is a little bit different than
10 matches,
we've seen out of
almost
him.
3 minutes a match.
Is it something that Soufflon's working on in the room with? Is it something that he's emphasized, or is it kind of just fell into his lap of, I'm on top, I'm going to stay on top for these matches?
No, I think Max has got that mindset where no matter what the position, he's gonna work it hard. And I know he's been making an emphasis to turn more, and we've seen more turns from him as well, more top points. This weekend, though, he didn't. It was funny. I think he had 5 minutes and change of riding time, but
5:55.
Yeah, I was going to say 5 and a
but
lot
got
of
the
change.
major yet from takedowns. So that tells you he got 5 takedowns in about a minute, a little over a minute.
Yeah, he took that guy down 12 seconds into the match and just.
And that's been his
Bro.
MO this year. I can't believe how relentless on the attack he's been with some of these guys, and the fact that he's not out there feeling guys out. He's not waiting around and picking his spots. He's putting them on the mat like that.
Yep.
And he's grinding them.
And he's the top position is still very important to him. He's not a take him down, let him up kind of guy, right? Like he's taking him down. He's going to ride hard. We want him to find more turns. Still, obviously, we want that to pay off for him.
He's got 38 back points already this season.
Yeah, wow. So he's doing a good job. But to highlight a point, he got the major, but with 5+ minutes on top, we still didn't have a turn. And that's something we want to emphasize. We want that turn. We want to add that to his skill set. So I know he's working very hard on it. And we want that top time to pay off, and he should, between Shop and Daniel Lewis, and and as you mentioned, Coach Soufflon, he's got enough people around him to show him where he needs to go.
Well, one guy on the flip side of this, Emil Sondland has seen a gauntlet of guys over the last.
Guys had a tough run.
Couple weekends. He's extremely young, first time in the lineup for him. What is this doing for him? We talked about a couple weeks ago of what it is that flips the switch for guys. Is it winning a couple big matches, or is it losing close matches? Do you think this is going to help him long term of seeing this kind of talent this early on in his career?
It should help him. That's what I want Emil to understand. Like Emil, works very hard. He comes into practice ready to go. He's got the right mindset. He's controlling his weight. Like he's doing what he needs to do, right, to put himself in a position to be successful. You still have to earn it, right? Like there's two things here. There's the practice time and what you're doing with your lifestyle and your weight and those things. And then when you put your foot on the line, right? And if you don't bring it in either instance, right, you're not going to be as successful. He's learning what he has to do when he's out there from a performance standpoint to be successful. And as long as he keeps an open mind, keeps his head up, keeps doing the right things, which he's doing, he's going to come out the other side. He's a talented kid. He has the talent to be successful. He's got the work ethic. He's got to learn what he has to do when he puts his foot on the line against the better guys. Because I think he's seen, 6, 7, and 8, at this point, I think almost in a row. Mm-hmm. So he's seen the guys he's going to have to beat to be on the podium. He's just got to, keep his head up, make some of these changes that we're talking to him about, and he'll come out the other side. He will. This is a learning experience, but you got to keep swinging. You got to keep taking your shots. That's the one thing he's got to understand, that he's got to get up and go again. And if he does that, he'll be fine. This will absolutely pay off for him at the end of the year if he lets it.
Well, it was a big weekend for NCAA wrestling in general. There were a ton of upsets this past weekend. A lot in Big Ten, especially. Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech. Minnesota losing to Rider at home. They had a Mackie Mayhem type style where they were at the barn.
On the flip side, Illinois goes out and gets Missouri, and Michigan State goes out and gets Oklahoma.
Yep, I had that Oklahoma beating Michigan State 21-16, and then Oklahoma State losing to Lehigh as well by only 1 point.
Criteria loss, yeah.
How these things matter to us.
The fifth criteria, right?
Yeah, it went all the way to total points.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma State Lehigh match.
It matters. It has a little bit of a trickle-down effect, partially because, especially as a coach, as a program, you want all of your opponents to do well, except for when they face you, right? Like that's the best case scenario.
Make your schedule look nice and tough.
Everyone comes in undefeated and they come out with a loss against us. So that's always the idea. However, it also has effect in the rankings too, because there's some of these teams that are obviously very good. Ohio State, obviously very good. Oklahoma State, obviously very good. And taking losses doesn't mean they're going to drop out of the top 25, but maybe some of these other teams are going to take up spots in the top 25. And us being a team that has, given up based on the week 4 to 7 guys in the top 20 at each position, it kind of pushes us out on the fringe a little bit because of some of these teams getting these wins.
It can do that, and then definitely listen. we obviously all understand it's very early in the season.
Right.
People are still trying to get their lineups, straightened out. I mean, if you look at Ohio State, for instance, they're trying to figure out who they are. They've got a lot of young guys. They had a couple of different guys in, especially up at, I think it was 74, 84 might have been, in this week getting their shot. So you see a lot of coaches trying to figure out who they're going to be, you know what I mean? And so, you don't, it's fun. I get it's fun for everybody, the fans and to watch and to see how your team's doing. But right now, especially for us, we're just focused on, being the best team we can. You know what I mean? Every week, just go out and perform, knowing that, especially later for us, we have a lot of good teams coming as well, right? I mean, we've had some great teams in front of us, for sure, that we've already, had to deal with. But with the Big Ten schedule, we're going to see a lot of good teams. And our, fate, so to speak, will be in our own hands. You know what I mean? And that's going to start with the Big Ten schedule. So I don't worry about that as much, I guess. Now, certainly you want recognition for your guys. You always, their hard work, you want them to be recognized. But, I think we have great people, and that's going to play out the way it needs to as we move through our season.
And the good news is, we did maintain our top 25 ranking in the NWCA coaches poll this week. We're getting some nice love from a lot of the different outlets in regards to tournament rankings. Some we bumped up to as high as 19th, I think. Is that what I told you?
Yeah, I think we're anywhere from 19 to 25 in the various polls. So there's some love there.
Yeah, we're hanging on to that recognition that you're talking about. Obviously it's nice. It doesn't matter in March.
No.
Which is what we all realize. But the recognition is nice, and the attention is nice, and it, when we get on TV here pretty soon, we're going to go to Midlands and be on TV. Flo's going to be out in Vegas covering that event, and there's going to be some different opportunities to be in front of the cameras where you want to give those announcers some good things to talk about, and some having those numbers next to your name while they don't mean anything in the long run, and they're just to steal your words, they're fun to talk about.
And on BTN Plus on Sunday.
We are on BTN Plus.
We are on BTN Plus with Corey Palm on the call.
Can't wait
By the
for
way.
it.
Little self-promotion there. Little self-promotion.
I want to. It's interesting because you're absolutely right that they're just numbers and fun to talk about at this point. But these ranking services don't just give them away. Typically, they're earned, and the results that earn them do matter come March. So a guy like Dylan.
It's a good way to tie it back.
A guy like Dylan Lighty climbing up to 7 this week on Flow or in the top 10 in a lot of places. It matters because he's beaten a handful of other ranked guys to get that. So
100%.
Hopefully that, it's all nonsense, but it all matters a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't mean to imply, I guess, to use your word, that it's nonsense, right?
Sure.
Like these ranking services, they're people, they work on it. They're not picking it out of a hat either. So it does reflect hard work done by a lot of people. But I think what I'm talking about is it just means people made the most of an opportunity early in the year, and you don't have that whole resume in front of you yet, right? I mean, you have a team like, let's say, Illinois just upset Mizzou. That was a quality opponent. They made the most of that opportunity. Those are the teams that are moving in, or Ryder with a Minnesota. You know what I mean? This week, we didn't have that opportunity from a ranking standpoint. Quality opponent, to NDSU, quality opponent. But Coach Kish doing a good job.
Really
up there.
interested to see what they do the rest of the way.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, but from a number standpoint, they made the most of an opportunity.
Right.
And I'm just saying, we will have those opportunities come up as the season moves on, and we'll be ready for those opportunities.
The real mistake is if Ryder or Purdue lets that be what defines the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if that's what you're celebrating in March,
Yeah.
you did it wrong.
I'm also excited to see what North Dakota State does, because they have Northwestern coming up. They've got Indiana. They've got a couple Big Ten matches where they're going to be able to test themselves against other teams that compete at this level like we do. So
And that are on our schedule later
that
on.
is very, very much could turn out to be an extremely quality win later on in the season. I know you're a fan. I mean, you're a coach of wrestling. You've been around wrestling your whole life. Do you get a chance to watch any other matches over the weekend? Like when North Dakota State match is over and you get back to the room, you're watching our film? Or are you watching, checking out what's going on around the country in any of these other matches?
I mean, listen, I watch a lot, usually because we're scouting people, right? I got a chance to watch the Ryder-Minnesota duel just because I know we're going to see Minnesota down the road. And when you go to these other tournaments, you never know who's going to show up, like at Midlands. So yeah, you try to kind of scout the field, and you just watch people you're going to see down the road. So yeah, I watch quite a bit of wrestling. I do, though, we try to keep our focus on the guys from that standpoint.
Yeah. Speaking of getting to watch, Bill Farrell was this past weekend. Bill Farrell Open.
We watched a lot of it.
And that's what I was going to ask. I mean, there's a ton. Greco-Roman, freestyle, the women's brackets, it's just a giant tournament that has, if any fans at home got to watch, just a litany of names that I'm sure you recognize, especially from the Big Ten. And you got to watch some of it this past weekend?
We watched, as Tanner mentioned, a lot of it. First leg of the road to the Olympic team.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fun to see where people are at and how they stack up, because there's moves, right? When there's Olympic competition, there's a few weights that are deleted, and so you have athletes that have had great careers internationally are now shoved into other weight classes, and it gets really crowded. So you want to see how they do and how they perform, and it's going to bear on what December is going to be, because now December 20th through the 22nd, you have the next leg. You have essentially what used to be the U.S. Open in Dallas-Fort Worth. So there's a few people that have won that have now taken themselves out of that pool, but you see how crowded it's going to really be come December.
Do you ever see any differences? I mean, there's a lot of guys that competed this past weekend that are still active on rosters that we'll see later on this season.
Yes, we will.
Stevenson taking the 125 kilo weight class.
Seth Gross down on the other end at 57.
So guys that we're going to see, do you ever see a difference in how those guys train, how they perform in the Big Ten schedule, or how they perform in their school schedule compared to guys that don't compete in tournaments like that? Like, does that tournament give guys an extra, couple matches against some very quality opponents that help them later on in the season?
Oh, I think it can be a gamble, right? I think it's interesting to me that, let's use Seth Gross, for instance. I mean, he's down at 57 kilos, so he's even squeezed lower than his 133-pound weight class. And you kind of wonder how, in the middle of his season, coming down even further will affect him. And that's something that you'll want to keep track of and watch. But yeah, you have to alter your training, because you can only peak so many times in a year. This was obviously a big event, so they probably built up to a mini peak of sorts. Because now Seth Gross, he doesn't have to go to the bloodbath of what will probably be the Open, in December. So it paid off for him. Had he not won, that it would have been very interesting to see, what his training would be, or where he's going to try to peak again.
How difficult is that as a coach? You're coaching a guy to compete in two separate events, two separate places. So it's like, especially in that situation where maybe he has to come down a little bit, but you want him to be ready to go for your team, but you also want the best for him to go out and compete on the national level to earn a spot in the Olympics. So coaching a guy to be on basically two separate teams.
Yeah, it's and some would argue
good problem to have.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Yeah. Some would even argue two separate sports, right? I mean, now certainly there's a lot of crossover, you know what I mean? But obviously parterre wrestling and freestyle is a lot different than top bottom, and folk style wrestling. So there's pretty big differences still there. But I've heard a lot of great competitors and people who I respect who have accomplished a lot on both sides of the sport in freestyle and folk style, meaning where they felt they were at their best while they were competing in folk style, just because they were in shape, they had their weight under control, they competed regularly, you know what I mean? And so they felt like there was a lot of good things there that kept them in the right mindset. And you've seen a lot of young guys with Kyle Snyder and these different guys, they'll come right off a college season, transition into the folk style, they'll be on the world team the next fall, winning medals. So I think that there's a lot to be said that the two can coexist, and that they lend a lot of things that are very positive, in terms of how you're training and how you're thinking and those things that you can overcome maybe minor differences in the parterre aspect.
Well, a big weekend coming up this weekend. You get to be at home finally. no more travel, at least for the week. You've been on the road for 3 straight weeks.
I'm only a little thankful. Coming up on Thanksgiving, it just feels right.
Tanner had a tear roll down his cheek just a minute.
Whew, so happy to be home.
A lot of these guys will be the first time to get to wrestle in front of a home crowd. Has the schedule changed at all? Has it been, a little bit just a little bit different with getting a couple extra days in our own weight room, in our own wrestling room?
No, we try not to make it different, right? You try to make it consistent. And so, yes, while you like the time that you have, because you catch an extra day where you're not traveling.
Even in your own bed.
Right, sleeping in your own bed, which will help. But, it's the same. We follow kind of the same plan. Once we get down inside those last, 24 to 48 hours, leading up to match time, that routine looks very similar. From a workout, from what you're eating to how you're bringing your weight down. And I'm sure we'll have Elaine on to talk about that more extensively. But that plan looks the same. We don't want to vary just because we're at home. We don't want to get out of the rhythm of what we do.
Right. Well, we'll have Elaine on next week. Since Thanksgiving coming
That's
up.
the plan.
Hopefully, she's interested in coming on. I know people like hearing from her. Clarion, U of I, University of Indianapolis.
Yes.
And why am I forgetting?
Northern Illinois.
Northern Illinois coming in. So,
the Huskies.
as we saw this past weekend, with like we just talked about, with some teams that maybe overlooked opponents that they thought they were better than going into the weekend, you've got opponents coming in that have some very quality wrestlers on those teams that you can. I always heard, it's good to learn from your mistakes. It's even better to learn from other people's mistakes. So this week you kind of get to show.
I like that.
Show the team. This is what happens when you overlook a team that you think that you're better than, and then you get on the mat and you have to prove it, and it doesn't work out like you thought it was going to.
Yeah, you always want to guard against, a letdown, right? And I don't anticipate that being a problem because honestly, I didn't feel we were as sharp as we could have been last week. Okay, so that's something that we've already began talking about, and it'll be a point of emphasis, the entire year. As soon as you think you've arrived, you're beat. You're beat. So, our goal is to always try to be better. Each week, be better than you were the week before, and how good can you be? In search of that is kind of what we want to try to do. And I think we have the guys, I know they have the talent. It's just you don't ever want to kind of let down and think you figured it out. You always want to harp on, hey, how can we be better, and search for that. So I would expect that our guys will come ready to go and get after these guys and try to be better than they were.
Well, I hope everyone gets a chance to come out this weekend. It's the first time to see the Boilermakers in action, and the last time you'll get to see them for a little while. Boilermakers not back at home until
January 12th.
So it's going to be a little while. There's going to be a lot of the team's going to change quite a bit, I'm sure, between then and now. So make sure to get out and see the Boilers on Sunday, starting at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Holloway Gymnasium.
Full day of wrestling. You'll get to see 3 duels for the Boilers. If you can't make it out, it's on BTN Plus with Corey Palm on the call, as we talked about earlier. So you'll get to follow along there.
Quick question. I've always looked at, I'm from Illinois originally, so I grew up watching the Illinois high school wrestling. I know how strong it is. I know Pennsylvania high school wrestling, super strong. When you look at a school like NIU or a school like Clarion, where maybe they're not top-end programs on the national stage necessarily, they're still getting a lot of great kids. Are those kind of potential
landmines?
Landmines. I wasn't going to say sleeping giants, but landmines.
There will be quality kids in all 3 programs that we wrestle this weekend, and you can't afford to relax. You know what I mean? And so you've got to be ready to go. You can't take anybody for granted, and you've just got to go, okay, I got to take care of my business. How good can I be? How many points can I score? Let's just wrestle through every situation here, and we'll see where we land. You know what I mean? The score is going to take care of itself. So certainly, they're good programs that have quality people. Specifically at Northern Illinois, Dominic Moyer, I coached. He was a student athlete of mine, and I think he's an associate head coach actually at NIU. And I stay in touch with him and his family all the time. I know he's working hard, right? I know Coach Ludwig and those guys. I know all 3 teams. They're working hard, and they're going to come ready. And so we need to make sure that we're doing our part.
Well, an exciting weekend for the Boilers, Coach. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
3 duels
It'll be a lot of fun to be at home. It can be a lot of great matches, and just to have continuous wrestling throughout the day is going to be a lot of fun.
Of course. Well, you can always follow along with BTN Plus. If you can't follow along with BTN Plus, you can't be here. Tanner on Twitter,
Yep.
always updating.
We'll have some updates.
So you can follow along there as well.
We'll do some stuff.
Any questions, comments, concerns, anything for the coach? Maybe you can talk about how good his beard's looking during No Shave November.
No Shave November. We're 2/3 the way through this deal, so I was just informed Santa Claus is close.
Santa Claus is coming.
To compliment Coach on his beard. But for Tanner, Coach, Corey, I'm Hunter Massengill. Another edition of Always Aggressive podcast in the books. We'll see you next week. As always, spoiler up.